Hello, all, and welcome back to a new episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we're going to be reviewing the film Black Bag, and we are joined by not one, but two very special guests. We're so excited that they're on the pod today for the very first time. Sarah and Klarissa, do you all want to introduce yourselves?
Hello. Yes, thank you so much for having us on. This is just an absolute blast. Like she said, my name is Klarissa. I am on Instagram at I've Seen That One and have just kind of had a movie journey there. I mean, I've just had way too many classics I've never seen, and so I'm just chipping away at those. So I'm really happy actually to be watching classics before they become classics, and I do feel like this was a fun one to watch in theater. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
I feel you with the, there's so many classics I haven't seen before. And when I say that I'm, into movies, people are like, have you seen this one? I'm like, I'm so sorry. I haven't seen that one yet. I know I'm a bad film fan, but it's on the list.
Yes, always. That's my whole thing. That's why my page is called I've Seen That One, is so that I can finally say I've seen that one after I check it off the list. But it was like the weird culture of people who don't really frequently watch a lot of movies, but they're like, how can you say you're a movie buff if you haven't seen this movie? I'm like, oh, I don't know. The nerve of me, I guess. So anyway, chipping away, but people get really upset that I still haven't seen The Godfather.
I'll be one of those people. I'll be one of those people. It's one of my favorite movies ever of all time.
I'm going to get
I'm excited to see, when you get to watch that one. That'll be great. Yay. All right, Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I am Sarah Shea. I have a podcast with my father, William Shea, called Shea Cinema, and we are very, very, very slowly watching and reviewing every single film nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. We are doing it in chronological order, so we started at the very first Academy Awards, watching all 6 movies that were sort of considered for the 2 awards that they had for Best Picture. It's a weird thing. We dive a lot into history, context, all of that type of stuff. So it's more like I'm a teacher. It's a learning experience just as much as it is a movie watching experience. And so this is but it's also a way for me to document the time that I'm spending with my dad because he is elderly. And so this is a bucket list sort of thing. And we're going to see how far we can get. We are halfway through our 6th season, which is really just coincides with the 6th Academy Awards. And so that's what we're doing. Just watching all of the quote unquote best stuff together and then talking about it and being total dorks about it. So yeah.
I love that so much. That is so beautiful. What a special project. And also interesting conversation starters with your family too, of
For sure.
Just what they notice, what scenes really stand out to them, what characters they fall in love with or hate. Fascinating. That's so cool.
Yeah. It's really fun because he raised me on film and had no filter with what he was going to show me. And so I watched all the old stuff, but all of the new stuff simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And so this is us getting to watch stuff that we've never seen before, but we also get to be super excited about stuff that we shared with each other when I was very young. And so there's always something new and fun and exciting. And hopefully if people are listening, they're learning about stuff that they don't know about, or they're hearing us deep dive into whatever it is about this movie that is almost 100 years old, that type of thing. So eventually we'll get to this movie, which of course is going to be nominated for an Academy Award in 93 years because we're that far back, right?
I love it. So good. Well, we're so thrilled. This is going to be a fun conversation, I think. Lots to talk about. So I think this will be a blast. Sarah, do you want to kick us off with an IMDb summary for Black Bag?
Sure. When intelligent agent Catherine Woodhouse is suspected of betraying the nation, her husband, also a legendary agent, faces the ultimate test of whether to be loyal to his marriage or his country.
Oh.
Wow. That's a great summary.
It's really
right?
good.
That's really fun, yeah.
Leaves you on a cliffhanger. That's great. Okay. Our one-sentence summaries for Black Bag. This is a Movies and Us tradition. We kick off the episode by sharing our one-sentence summaries. As our guests, Sarah or Klarissa, do you want to share yours first?
Okay,
we both pointed at each other.
We're like, no, you. Yes, I'll absolutely go first. I feel like this one makes sense when you've seen it. But I would say a modern set Clue meets Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Nice. Yeah.
Like the Guy Ritchie Man from U.N.C.L.E. I'm like watching this movie and I'm like, I'm saying Clue. I'm saying Man from U.N.C.L.E. I'm saying Clue. Like, I'm seeing all these vibes.
I love any Clue reference. Like,
yes.
I love that movie.
Always. Me too.
The flames on my face.
So good. Yeah.
Okay, in true nerd fashion, I wrote a haiku for my one-sentence summary.
Oh, wow. We've never had that before.
That's
That
amazing.
is first.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay, and then also disclaimer, I took my 12-year-old daughter to see this movie with me. She's almost 13, but she's my little movie BFF as well as you, Klarissa. And so I took her to see it twice, actually, because I was like, we saw it, we liked it, and then I was like, we got to go back and see it again. And so half of this is me and half of this is her, but it's still one sentence, but it is a haiku. So let's get into it. All right. Still a better love story than Twilight, but thought more people would die.
Wow. I love that.
Wow. That took me on an emotional journey. Really. Like, I didn't know where we're going next, but woo, that was great.
Love that Twilight is in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a love story.
Yes. That was very fun. I didn't see Twilight coming, but I'm very happy that was there.
Yeah. I love it. It's so good. That's so good. Well done. I'll go next because my one-sentence summary is in the similar spirit or pulling the same thread, which is there are no more romantic 5 words than "I will kill for you."
Yes. Wow. Ooh, chills.
Sarah, what's yours?
Mine is come for the dinner, stay for the games, and drug-induced truth-telling.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
That one sounds like a horror movie, actually.
I mean, there were moments that, I was like, oh my gosh, jump scare.
Yeah, if you strip away like the gloss and really like think about some of the things in this movie, it's like, wow, these are kind of horrific what's happening here. But it's done in good fun, so it's a great time.
Yeah, but you're rooting for them, so it's fine.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's dive in. Let's maybe roundtable our high-level thoughts about Black Bag. So we're not going to spoil this movie yet for anyone that wants to see and hasn't seen it yet. And we're going to share just our overall reactions. Did this work for us? Did it land? Did something not quite work and didn't click for us? Where do we fall on that spectrum with Black Bag? Sarah, do you want to go first and share your thoughts?
Yeah, so my first thought almost right from the get-go was the music is so good, and it's not the same as I guess what I would call a traditional movie score, but it's very Steven Soderbergh and atmospheric and increasing tension without the really cliched sort of like high intensity like strings and all of that type of stuff. I just really loved the vibes from the music and the sound, and loved different shots throughout the movie. Like that whole opening sequence is supposedly one unending shot, not incredibly complicated, but really fun to suck you into the story. And everyone in this movie is beautiful and gorgeous to look at, and I just liked looking at everyone.
Here. I love that.
It's an amen. Love that.
And it was really, really fun. It almost could be a stage production, I think, which is something that I keep seeing in these older movies that I've become familiar with. So much early cinema was movies that were adapted from stage productions, and this feels like it could be that as well. And that felt very cozy and comfy to me in my understanding of like the evolution of cinema, essentially. So that's my big takeaway, I think, from it.
So cool.
Comfy. Yeah, that's a fascinating way to describe it. Yeah, so good. It does feel that way. You're like, hang out with these very interesting, beautiful, colorful personalities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, like you said, everything has like a cozy feel, which is so weird for a movie like this. Like, I mean,
right?
So I went into this movie blind. I like received the advice to not even watch a trailer. Don't look at anything from it. Don't even look at the cast. Just go. And so that's what I did. Yeah, so I knew, because I saw, like, my husband and I walked into a movie late and we saw the tail end of the trailer. So I knew that it had Michael Fassbender. But I didn't know anyone else. Pierce Brosnan? I didn't know Kate Blanchett. Like, so great. But yeah, one of my very first notes is that opening one shot. So cool. But especially going into this movie blind, I mean, my jaw was on the floor the majority of the time. And also it was like so embarrassing. I really am one of those people that is insistent on like really good movie theater behavior. Like best behavior, like you're not on your phone or anything. Forgot that other people exist. And I went, damn, like so loud. I was like, damn. There was like a moment, whenever listeners see this movie, there is absolutely a moment that just at that initial dinner scene that kind of jump scares you. And that, like, my husband leaned over and he was like, what are you doing? Like, there are people lining this movie theater. I'm like, so sorry. I bet they agree, though. But yeah, no, stunning visually. This is one of those movies that is really fun to also watch with an analytical eye, of like analyzing the use of color, the use of lighting, the sound design, and like diegetic versus non-diegetic sound for our listeners, of like, what are we supposed to be hearing and what are we hearing but not supposed to be hearing, kind of a thing. This movie really used a lot of that. And also their house was stunning. Dream house. Like, that was so beautiful. I will dream about that home forever, except for like the scary things that occur there randomly.
Yeah, they're going to need to figure out their stained drywall situation.
Yeah. Kind of a pickle.
You know.
Why is there a new rug? Why is there a new rug?
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. And one more comment generally.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with her brown leather jacket. I am obsessed with that jacket. I told my husband immediately, I'm like, you want to know what I want for my birthday next year? It's that brown leather jacket. It is that jacket. It's so cute.
I love it. I love it. Sarah, how did this movie land with you? Sarah Callan.
Yeah, no, I also had a great time. I am a big Soderbergh fan. This definitely gave me Ocean's 11 vibes, and that movie freaking rocks. So I was so happy to be in this world. One of the things that I really loved about this is I think it's 94 minutes. So it's so short and it accomplishes so much. The writing is so efficient. Oh, I loved it. In the first 2 minutes, you know everything you need to know about like the scope of this film. And I was just like, yes, give this to me. Yes. I'm so happy. But yeah, it's such a fun take on the spy genre. Like, I love spy movies, and this is well within that genre, but it's also doing new things as well, and it's a different take on it, which I just appreciated how fresh and exciting this seemed, while also just being so much fun to watch. So yeah, I had a blast. I had a great time.
I
love that.
Love it. Love it. This film really worked for me. I haven't had this much fun at the movies in such a long time. And I just love that this movie exists because it's such a small scoped 90-minute spy thriller without having to be big and flashy and bombastic and like up the stakes to be like, the world's gonna end. I mean, there's some real stakes in here. But interestingly, I feel like the things I was invested in was ironically not that, which is such a subversion of the spy genre. I was more interested in like who is behind everything that unfolds, which is it was such an interesting aspect of like it's so focused on the characters and how they collide with each other, and we trust that every character is sharp like a hawk, sees everything, schemy, And we just get to see kind of this like game board of them unfolding and being 2 steps ahead of each other or 3 steps ahead of each other. And I just love it. I ate it up. The dialogue is so sharp, so clever, so fast. And I appreciate that this movie even exists and that people are loving it, because this is a movie that would easily be a smaller film that doesn't get a theater release, that goes straight to streaming and kind of quickly forgotten, and no one's really seen it before. But I think this is like such high quality work, and there's a lot here. I also just like found it fascinating that while this movie is such a fun time, there's a lot of like themes that are baked in around like gender roles and dynamics and work and family tensions and choices that need to be made and all of that. Like workplace dynamics are also part of this. So there's just a lot more there that's pretty rich in the text, which I was surprised by. I expected to go and have a fun time, but I'm like, I actually have a lot to think about with this movie that has been unfolded in the text. So yeah, this really worked for me. I loved it.
So cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's give a spoiler alert, because there's a lot that happens in this movie, and let's give ourselves the freedom to talk about all of it. So if you haven't seen The Black Bag, this is your spoiler alert. We clearly, I think unanimously pretty like loved this film and had a really great time and recommend seeing it. So that's all you need to know, is all 4 of us are like, yes, go buy your ticket, watch this movie in the theater specifically too, and
Yes.
then listen to the rest of this episode. So, all right. The spoiler is out there, so we have full free right now to talk about anything we want. I want to hear maybe some of the big moments or specific choices the film makes that were noteworthy, either because they were surprising or they just really landed really well for you.
So for me, one of the notes that I actually wrote to myself is the drone strike that happens, which is kind of like the climax of the movie, where you've got essentially everything coming together and our heroes are gonna win essentially in the end. So the drone strike is happening and they're describing all of these things, and it's pushing and pulling among like 3 different scenes, I think. But there's this classical music that is playing over it, and it's really incongruous. And the juxtaposition between that music and then the explosion that is happening with this drone strike, it's supposed to make you feel incredibly uneasy while you're also being put at ease with this lilting sort of music. And I've seen this done in old movies to the very same effect. And it's something that I actually really enjoy. And this is going to sound weird when I say it, but I enjoy this trope that has happened. It's happened a lot, and we've seen it in more recent movies as well. But this sort of happy music that plays along with something that's sad or tragic or unsettling. And the earliest example that I've seen it in all of the early movies that I've watched, because that's my specialty right now, is in the movie 5 Star Final from 1931, which is this movie that is about a newspaper that's drudging up old cold cases in order to sell print. And there is this scene in it where there is a couple and there's happy jazz music that is playing as they commit suicide. We don't see them commit suicide, but it is that same sort of feeling of what you are hearing does not match up with what you are seeing and kind of the terror that is going on. And granted, I think that here in Black Bag, this classical music over the drone strike is not as severe as a couple in 1931 committing suicide. But I was just like, that's the way my brain worked, and connect it back to what I had seen before. And I really kind of loved that that's something that can be used in terms of sound, because it's not what you are expecting at all. And it carries this sort of emotional wallop that can be a little bit funny while also being incredibly horrifying at the same time.
Yeah, that's so cool. Honestly, I'm going to add that to my list. But that is something like I thought about in this movie, is honestly the use of juxtaposition in everything. Like there was so much. One thing I wanted to touch on is their house, because I feel like it's a representation of them as a couple in a way. And so like when he finds that movie ticket and he goes down to confront her about it, I mean, I make jokes all the time with my husband. I'm very much a soft white girl. That's why this house is my dream house. I'm like, wow, if I can't see 10 feet in front of me, chef's kiss. It's nice and dark and cozy. I'm good. I don't love LEDs. And so I was like, wow, this is so perfect. And then there are really bright kind of LED lights when he is questioning her with the movie ticket in the kitchen. Like all of a sudden that really cozy, intimate kitchen from the night before when he's making dinner is no longer that feel. And even at the dinner with all those people, it's a cozy feel because they are on the same page and the same team. But the second he starts to question her, and you even like you can notice it in the agency building quite a bit too, is that it's like things get bright, or I mean even the video from the satellite when he's kind of like spying on her is like really a bright video from a bench. It's just thinking about that so much, I was like, they are really cinematically making a point that like, I mean, the foundation of this movie is their marriage, you know? And so it's like when that trust is in question, we're not as comfy cozy as we were as an audience, and you're going to feel that even if you're not paying attention to it. Totally.
No, that's so good. That's such a good observation. And the other thing about their house that I found fascinating is, like you, I loved it too. I was like, I want to live in this house. This is amazing. But I thought that it was so interesting that their bedroom looked so different than anything that we saw on the ground floor. And to me, it almost seemed like it was two different houses. And I thought that that was really indicative of, obviously, they have very different personalities and complement each other in that way, but also that they have this like outward facing role and they have this persona that they have to have when they're on and when they're at work and they're inviting people over for dinner for a work function and all of this, and it has to look a certain way and be a certain way. And then once they can go up into their private space, their bedroom, then it looks different and they can like shed some of those layers. So I even thought like visually, like you were talking about the lighting, also the set decoration supports that, where you can see these different sides of them and like where they feel like safest and where they can have like show their true selves, whereas everywhere else they have to kind of mask up to some degree. So I loved those visual choices really emphasize kind of that central battle that the characters are going through.
So cool. And honestly, a fantastic point. I don't think I really paid enough attention to their bedroom. I feel like I felt that shift, but like you saying that makes so much sense to me. I'm like reflecting back on that and I'm like, you're right. Like it did feel like a different house. Totally.
Well, if you think about it too, if you remember in the bedroom, like behind the bed, there's kind of like, so it's more like warm tones like reds and browns, and there's kind of like this floral or like leaf motif that is up on the wall, but it does feel very sensual and sexy. And then I didn't notice it until my second watch, but downstairs in the dining room, they do have this sort of like forest mural that's painted downstairs, which is similar to the vibes that are out at the lake. And so they are totally separate sorts of things because those are the only places where they let other people in, right? And so the lake is the only place that we see outside of their house where Michael Fassbender's character George is more isolated, but what's his face? The bad guy shows up. James, thank you. But that whole mural is behind him when the final scene is going on as well.
I just thought about that too. I was like, how crazy that his demise is in front of that mural, and then he is standing on the rug that he gets rolled up in to be thrown into the lake that is also similar to that mural.
But you remember when they're out at the lake and he decides not to shoot him.
Yeah.
James gets a catch on his line and he says, what am I supposed to do with it? And George says something like, oh, let him run a little bit. So he's still on the line and he lets him live. And James says, you should have shot me when you had the chance. But like the lake is literally behind him in their living room.
Oh my
And that's
gosh.
when Catherine shoots him.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting because I think it, like, at that point, George knows, but he's thinking like 3 steps ahead of like, no, we need to also draw out the confession from him and orchestrate something bigger. But I have the confirmation that I needed from here. So just the way that the two of them are so strategic in their scheming is so juicy and delicious to watch. I thought that was so thrilling. One thing about their home while we're on the topic is I thought that the way the film is bookended with them having conversation in their bedroom, but the way that the trust and intimacy has increased as a result of this whole journey that we go on by the end of the film is also really fascinating. So at the beginning of the film, there's a little bit of like distance between the two of them as they're getting ready for this. And Catherine is getting dressed. He is getting dressed. So they are preparing to be external facing. And by the end of the film, they have this moment of intimacy. They can unwind from their day, from their scheming, and connect deeply. And so the change in the mirroring of those two scenes and how there's growth for these two characters and their relationship and progress has been made is also a fascinating bookending of the film as it starts and as it ends.
Totally. I think that's a super great point too. It gave me, this is so random, but there have been a couple little things in this that have reminded me in a way of Gone Girl. Just because of little things like that, of like, there's kind of the repetition of scenes or like feels, but also like this, oh my gosh, you feel bad or like you're worried and you're confused. Like there was a second there where I was questioning Catherine. And then immediately I was like, oh my gosh, now I feel bad for questioning her. It's this weenie over here. But like it was that kind of vibe of how he switched that. And I do agree, like those moments that are reflective of each other, but they change because of the emotional context of like the story. So cool. Yeah, great point.
Well, and I think too, there's the framing of at the first dinner, right? Where the other why can't I think of anybody's name? The other beard guy.
Freddie?
Tom,
Oh.
thank you, is telling the story of how George spied on his own father and turned him in, right? And so we'd have the exposition set up of Catherine is a suspect, so his wife is a suspect, and then immediately at the dinner, we have the story of he turned in his own father. So even if she is a bad guy, guess what? He is also a bad guy because he is willing to cut his own family out. And so who are we actually, where things are told from his perspective, but are we actually rooting for him knowing that he would take out his own family members, even if he doesn't like people who are dishonest? I get that, and that's noble and a great moral stance, but I think that still puts us at I felt unease as an audience member going, oh, but he's kind of so cold-hearted and ruthless. Can I actually root for him? And is he going to be taken in by stuff and not necessarily see the truth? Or is he going to be taken in by just enough suspicion that he will tip the scales and it won't matter if it's the truth or not? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I loved that kind of sense of unease with George and kind of those mixed feelings of like, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to be rooting for you, but also, am I? and I like that his character is also so neat and tidy and precise and all of that, but it also makes him more interesting. I feel like it's not just this tropey character that just is very particular, but it plays into everything that he does and all of these chess moves that he's doing and the way that he just watches everything. And I love the combination of him being so particular and also being able to read people so well. And I think that just all swirls together in a really interesting character for us to follow. And these subtle changes that we see throughout the film in him, and Michael Fassbender gives a really good performance of showing us a lot without having to be big about it. And so I was so fascinated by George. I wanted to learn so much more about him because I think I was kind of conflicted about him in certain points, and that just makes this film even more rich.
Absolutely. Those were my thoughts too, especially with him, is that it's like we mostly follow him, and there are those moments of like you know, wondering or emotional turmoil within us as audience members, but especially because he is so precise and intentional about everything he's doing. I mean, even when he goes in to check on things, he's like got gloves, like he's got things timed to the minute, and then, just everything like that. I think one of my favorite parts with him is when they're in that meeting and they're like, somebody hacked the signal. And to me, I was like, why is he not playing the role? He is a spy. He should be aware of his body language. But I loved what he did there. Sarah, you've got something to say. Go.
He acted that way on purpose.
Yes, of course.
Right? The first time I was like, you look a little too worried. Stop with the shaking of the hand. And I was like, duh, he's doing that exactly because they know, he knows, they all know. So he is playing the part and is playing into, and which is why at the very end, when she says to him, why didn't you just ask me about the movie ticket? And he's like, you would never be so messy. And I was like, I got taken in for just a split second that he was being messy in that meeting and then being like, oh, no. He's doing the mime thing with his face. So everybody, he's telegraphing all of his moves so that they will then telegraph back, right?
Which makes that ending and that game so much more satisfying because they were all convinced that they had done fine. And then they like come to this dinner and they throw and slide the gun across the table, and just all of these little things add to that beautiful moment of chaos of like, they're all talking over each other and they're like, oh, come on, what is this? Like, what do you mean? And yeah, but all those things were just set perfectly. Like the whole thing really is a game. Like who's playing who. Yeah, so good.
I think that final game is such a perfect example of how George and Catherine are always one step ahead of you, and like you better not play with them because like you're gonna get outplayed, because they position it as, we're gonna see who, like, we're gonna use this to like take out the person that lies first, but it's actually revealed it's the bait and overreaction. So it was all intentional to get James riled up, and the game was actually see who picks up the gun first. And I thought that was really a great piece as well. And there's no bullets in there. I just thought that was a perfect example. George and Catherine, I'm sorry we ever doubted you.
Yes, right? Well, I love, too, that they didn't say the name of the game. I mean, everyone kind of like, asked a little bit at first, but she knew that the timing of like giving the name of the game would be her game. Like that's what she was looking for. And especially when they're like trying to play it of like, we need all the dominoes to fall where they're supposed to fall to really like make sure that this is taken care of. And I love that it is all in protection of their marriage. Like, it's just, I mean, really, I said it earlier that this is like, their marriage is the foundation of this movie, but I just loved that so much. And that was basically what they were doing of power playing of like, you guys tried to do this? Like, don't F us over. Don't even try. Don't even go there. We'll play another game, MFers.
Well, and I also love that they all thought that it was their marriage that was their greatest weakness, but it was actually their greatest strength. And so again, that like playing with expectations and going, everybody thought it would be this one way because all of their relationships are in disarray and they're a whole mess. And so they thought that they could use that against George and Catherine, but nah, man, they got you.
Yeah, totally. I love too when we come in on that one shot and he goes down like in the very beginning and he has the guy come out from the club. The guy, like some of the very first dialogue in the movie is him criticizing their marriage. And honestly, because I went in totally blind and everything like that, I was like, that has to play a really big piece here because it is being made a point to be the very first thing they talk about. And that whole dinner, like the first initial dinner, is how none of them respect relationships, or things that they're disloyal or, and that's something that is looked down, like just like you were saying.
I think it also plays with like a really interesting trope in like spy movies that really highlight people that have that constant like paranoia and doubt. They're kind of lone wolves. They're independent. And are wary of close relationships because it can be used against them in their careers. And so I think this is like an interesting subversion of that, because we expect the film to take the direction of these two really incredible spies are now going to sow seeds of doubt that are just going to get fanned into these larger flames, and they're going to take each other out. And I just love that the film takes the totally opposite direction with that, of like, no, actually, they are smart enough to have even seen 2 steps ahead that plot was being played up against them. So it rewrites, I think, some of the typical ways that these characters are written to be cold-hearted and focused on the mission and disconnected from their emotional relationships. It kind of plays with that trip that we're familiar with.
I think it's interesting too, because some of the previews that were like before this movie and things like that, we've got every single movie is sorrowful man whose wife has been killed by accident or on purpose, and now he's gonna get revenge. Like, this is the standard operating procedure, and I get it. Like, I want someone, not only do I want someone to kill for me while I'm alive, but definitely avenge my death and kill people after I've been taken away from you. Like, yes, this is so romantic.
Yeah.
But this is also why I stopped watching like the more recent Bond movies, because I just got sick of sad Bond. Like, get over it. Like, I did not sign up for him to be morose and like staring off into the distance. Like, I want you to run around and be a cat and have lots of sex and all of, like, I want that Bond. And I liked sad Bond over his wife for like a hot second, but only a hot second. And so, as you were saying, this subverts that trope of he's sad over his wife and we kind of are feeling conflicted about him morally, but even though we don't see that passion that we expect between Catherine and George, it is definitely there. And it is so solid that they don't have to waste time with what we would view as like those sweeping romantic gestures. Because guess what? She is going to kill for George and George is going to kill for her, but no one's going to be sad and depressed about it and just like drown their sorrows in whiskey or bourbon or vodka martinis or whatever it is.
Well, and because this is a 90-minute movie, we don't got time for all of that.
No, we don't. No staring into the distance.
There's no time. We got things to do. We got to root out a mole. Like, come on, folks.
Yeah.
We got to stay on task. And I love how efficient this movie is, because
yes,
it packs all of this in there, and it's giving us all of these deep emotional cues and letting us know about these characters, obviously in the dialogue and the performances, but also in the things that we already talked about, like set design and lighting and all of these things. So the film is just so smart in understanding we have a limited amount of time to communicate everything, and we are only going to give what you need, and it trusts the audience to pick up all of those things and run with the movie where the movie is going. And so I love that. We didn't need all of that other jazz. We don't need to know, Catherine and George's backstory. We don't need to know their love story. Like, no, dude, we get a week with them, and we're on this journey with them as they're going through this week, and it's great.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
I think too, like, we see like we don't get to see their love story or like little clips from their wedding or even like a wedding picture, anything like that. But we get to see these moments, and honestly, there isn't like a ton of time in this movie that they're together, because she does go to Zurich and then she's taking care of other things because she's been framed. He's sneaking around trying to find things, but we feel that intimacy also with, I think, just the little mannerisms in their marriage. Yes, like his nitpicky cleaning stuff sets him up as like who he is and being a meticulous person, but it also sets him up as that spouse. Like, I'm that spouse. And so immediately I leaned over and I was like, that's me. Because she's like, come to bed, just relax. And he's like, yeah, I'm coming. And he's like doing stuff while I'm like, this is a little real. Like, that is how you see their marriage. And you like immediately feel this connection of like, either I know people like that or I am that person, or like, I'm aware of this situation, and it just makes them more real in their marriage of like, yeah, this is a really like comfortable, good marriage if you're just seeing these little intimate moments with the two of them. Yeah.
while we're talking about the efficiency of the movie, one other thing that I really thought was a fascinating choice is that this is not a process movie, but kind of is. So when that whole grand plan that they hatch at the end unfolds, I love that we don't get the scene with the two of them being like, okay, so this is our plan. This is what we're going to do to like take them all out. And then we see it unfold. You know, like we're kind of discovering it along the way as well. And we're seeing how, as the events are unfolding, all of the planfulness that went into that. So we don't get to see him like researching all of the photos of James in one of the countries opening the bank account. We don't get to see. And I kind of love that they just cut all that out. They're like, that's not, we could do that. That could be interesting for you, but it's not necessary to make the final point. It's actually more thrilling for him to like slap the photos on the table at the end and for it to be implied how much work and effort they put in to do the research, get to the bottom of it, and then have this grand unveiling. So I kind of love that there's so much process stuff in here, but it's actually not the typical process movie of seeing them like teasing apart every thread and fleshing it all out. So I love that piece. Very efficient as well. They cut it all out.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think too, that's where I got the Clue vibe, was that it was like, we aren't seeing all these little things and all this evidence that they're putting together, but then they just hand it to us. And we're just sitting there as an audience like, oh, like eating it up, just soaking it in, just the way that all of these people who have been stinkers see it. It's like, guess what? You've been bad and we know it. So that's really a satisfying moment. And I love that you touched on that for like, especially the efficiency of it is like, we really don't have time to have them sit there and piece it together. But I think too, it leaves us on the edge of our seats as audience members of like, how is this going to go down? Because we still don't know exactly all these pieces or who it was or anything like that. There hasn't really been anything implied. Like, we can kind of try to guess and like theorize, but that's kind of the best part, is that it's like, it's a quick runtime as a movie, but also we are constantly questioning, and that is so satisfying. And we get a quicker answer than like a 3-hour movie, which is also very satisfying.
I think one of the things that I loved too is that Klarissa, the character, is an absolute red herring from start to finish. With that opening dinner sequence, you think that she is like this unhinged individual who is gonna throw everything into chaos, and then the polygraph comes up and she's clearly learned how to beat it, and you're like, okay, she's the one, everything's hinged on her, everything's gonna fall apart because she's a jerk and she's jealous of this perfect relationship. And then at the final dinner, George is like, you had nothing to do with any of this, good job. And I was like, but I was staring at her the whole time. Oh, dang, I got taken in by it. And it was great that she was so, like, I thought that she was going to be way more involved, and she absolutely was not. She was there to distract us, but also to pull out these other components of the other characters. And I liked that there was someone in there who actually didn't know what was going on. So therefore, I didn't feel like such a complete idiot as all of the other pieces were falling together. So high five to Klarissa, the character, for just being a weirdo and not actually a jerk face.
Love that for her. Just love that for her. Yeah, well, it is true. They really implied it so much. I was ready for it, especially with the polygraph. I was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, what point are you trying to make? And then I was like, that's why they did that. They wanted us to just think that she's a stinker. So good.
Well, I love at the end, too, in that ending dinner scene, just the camera spends so much time just focused on her face in utter shock as she's like just a gal trying to do her job. And she's just like, oh, what? What is happening? And the camera doesn't cut away. It just like leaves it on her for a while. And I'm like, that's us too, you know? Like she's our audience stand-in. I'm also like, what?
Yes.
Any other big things, big moments or small details that you're just like, oh, so juicy. I loved it.
You know, it's real. Okay, this is really dumb. this is something that I had a thought to myself during the polygraph. And one of the questions that George asks, I think it's the counselor, he says, "Do you enjoy toast?" And she pauses for just a moment and she kind of smirks and she says, "Yes." And I was thinking about this and I was like, that's such an odd question to ask. And then I was like, but is it really odd if they're in the UK? Because toast is ubiquitous in the UK. And I was like, is that a question that he would be asking if this was like in the United States or something like that? What would it be? Would it be toast? And would they be so thrown off because we view toast as being so bland and so boring? And so what would the equivalent be? And I thought about this way too long. And then I thought maybe it would be, do you enjoy waffles? Because that would seem so weird.
Yeah.
And she's like, why are you asking me this during a polygraph? Yes, I like waffles. Like, come on
Yeah.
now. Of course. Who doesn't love waffles? I don't know.
Hmm.
That is the way my brain works. Feel free to cut this part out.
I
had to mention it.
I love that so much. It's such a cute detail. I didn't really like ruminate on the toast thing, but I love that you did, because thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think anyone would just like ask that question.
Well, I mean,
You're totally
because
right,
you've got other weird questions, right? Did you masturbate this morning? Have you ever committed violence against whatever? Those
Yeah.
are bizarre questions, but they make sense. But the do you enjoy toast
Mm-hmm.
was so what? Like so
Yeah.
bizarre out of all of the obviously bizarre questions that were being asked. And then I got too caught up in it, and I'm so sorry for my weird brain.
I love it.
It's so good. I also fixated on that a little bit, but my brain took me somewhere else because her accent is different than everybody else's. And I think they even mention like she's from a different part of the UK. I don't
north.
remember where. And
Yeah.
so I did wonder if maybe it's also like a geographic thing of it has different meanings in different like parts of the UK that I wouldn't know because I'm just an American living over here. So that was kind of what I was wondering, if there's also like a regional component to it that I just missed.
Might be.
Totally. That's a great point. I didn't really notice that they commented on where she's from. That is definitely like a detail I missed, but I was paying attention to her dialect because I was like, I keep hearing like something shift there. And so I kind of like pieced it together, but I totally like that went right over my head.
Well, she's the one that they say is religious, that she went to Catholic school,
Yeah.
and Catherine comments on it. And there was all of this talk about like ideology, and it was stated like as a motivator, and the only ideology that is ever mentioned, and she never says it herself, it is Catherine saying, you were raised Catholic, right? You went to 12 years of Catholic school. So the counselor is, I don't know why I'm having problems with names. Zoe, thank you. Yes. She never says that herself, except for in the polygraph, they ask, does she believe in God, or there's no such thing as God? And she says that is false, but they use that as a way to say that this is how all of this comes together, is because she morally would have had some sort of objection to it.
Yeah.
I could be totally wrong, but I think it's either she's from North London or from the northern UK, and therefore that would have had a slightly different accents. I think she's more on the Cockney side of it, so it would be considered to be lower class, but that would also have some religious components as well, versus Catholic versus Protestant, I think.
Yeah. Well, I love too that like her religion does come up so much for other people. And I think that also just comments and almost like bolsters this whole thing of like how they kind of look down on their monogamous marriage. Is that it's like there are specific things that people do that would be considered like traditional whenever, right? And they're like, how can you do this traditional thing in this world that we live in, being a spy? Or like, that is so obscure. How can you believe in God with this kind of a career field? Like, and I love that it came up actually during her like breakup confrontation thing with James. You know, it was so interesting. I had like my husband and I had different reactions to that scene because I was paying attention so much to what he was saying and he was paying attention so much to what she was saying. And he said to me, he leaned over and he was like, oh my gosh, she is such a jerk. And I was like, he is such a jerk. And he was like, they're both jerks. Like, we both just sat there and we were like, this isn't like, and I even said, I was like, hun, this just is not an ideal situation across the board. But like, it was so interesting that we both kind of like paid attention differently to both of their mannerisms. And I'm like listening to all these things, but how often James brought up her religion too, even in that conversation, and like how they were pointing at her cross, like other people who had sessions with her were pointing at her cross that laid on her chest. Like, it was so interesting how often that came up. I'm so happy you mentioned that.
I really loved that breakup scene.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, very dysfunctional, very not okay. I was also like, ma'am, you are a therapist. What are we doing here? Like, this is inappropriate. But
Yeah.
I loved that whole scene. There's so much emotion in it. The dialogue is so sharp. You learn so much about both of these characters who are such just kind of enigmas in this one heated exchange. And I love that it's just words. That's it. That's creating all of the emotion, all of the tension. And I thought that was it was such a fascinating scene, but it was so well done.
Yeah.
And he says at the end, right, best breakup of my life or something like that, or easiest breakup of my life. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, the whole time we're like sitting there as audience members, just like looking back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Like,
Yeah.
does he love her? I think he really loves her. He's devastated. Oh, nope, not devastated. Oh, nope.
Best
Or
thing
just
ever.
emotionally suppressed, you know? And
There's always that.
and it all comes out at the end. So good on
Yeah.
good on George and Catherine for figuring out that this man is unprocessed.
Yeah. You know, one thing I also loved about this scene is the soccer ball keychain. I mean, of course, that comes up later and is very telling, but it also, like, thinking back, there are 0 vibrant colors in this movie. Like, they're all very calm, collected. Even their outfits. I mean, I don't think anyone really super duper wears colors in this. And so to have that word again of just the juxtaposition of the colors of like him playing with the soccer ball. I remember seeing that and I was like, that is so out of place. Like, that little thing is so out of place. I'm like, what is it just a little fidget? And then all of a sudden, like, it came together later where I was like, of course they made a point of it. But I noticed that it was like a bright red soccer ball. And there are not like bright colored things in this movie, like at all.
Isn't that like called a MacGuffin? MacGuffin?
Yep.
Something?
Yeah. Yeah.
A McMuffin? I don't know.
No, it's a MacGuffin. It can be a McMuffin, though. That's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh
that
my
would
God,
be
what if
George's
your
question.
McMuffin is a McMuffin?
Do you like McMuffins?
That's the polygraph question.
McMuffin, McGuffin?
Yeah.
Yes. Right next to the toast.
Other small details that I loved. I just liked seeing like the small ways that you see that they're seasoned professionals. There's so many times where they'll walk in a room and they're about to have a really like highly confidential conversation, and the movie lets there be this like few seconds of time where you see them just like listening for the door to close and then they start talking. And I just love that little like detail in the staging and timing and set design of it all. Is like, yeah, they have to, their ears are waiting. And then they immediately start speaking after they hear the door close. And I just loved, there's so many little times where that happens. And it was satisfying every time.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
So good.
I also love like how tactile everything is in the one scene with Klarissa where she's doing the drone strike business. She has such like a clacky keyboard, and I loved the way that sounded. And
Yes.
I think it's such an interesting problem that we have sometimes in movies of like, how do you make something like getting into a spy satellite? How do you make that exciting? Because it's just a person typing at a keyboard. That's what I do at work all day. That's not exciting. So how do you make this scene so thrilling? And obviously we have all of these different angles, and then there's the time crunch of the boss seeing that the spy stuff was going on. All of that is exciting. But I also think that the choice for her keyboard to be so clacky and that sound just makes everything so much more exciting, because she's typing so fast and then it would just stop and you're like, oh, okay, what's going to happen next? And then she uses her little spinny ball thing, and that has a different sound. And then she goes back to typing. And I loved how.
And the swivel chair.
Yes. It was all so tactile and everything sounded different. And I thought that also really helped to like amp up the excitement or the tension in a scene. And you see that kind of throughout because there's not a lot of action in this. It's just a lot of people talking. And I thought all of those little details also help to enhance all of the tension and the excitement that's happening on screen.
Yeah. Well, and, in that scene, that is the other only brightly lit room in the movie. It's orange. That room is orange. And it's like every other room in the agency is a very calm, like, room. And they're like, we're going to put you in an orange room with your computer. And it really does. It emphasizes it a lot. And I think later, I mean, especially with keyboards and talking about how that's emphasizing, when he is sneaking into her office and he puts on the gloves and everything, he's typing really quietly. And it's like, they're probably just about the same keyboard. I mean, everyone at my work has the same keyboard because they were given by our company and they were just bought all in bulk. So it's like, it could have been the exact same thing, but it's the different feel. So that's always kind of fun to like kind of take note of. And I loved the sound of the clicking like card that she puts in. It's not like a memory card, but it's like along those lines. And that's always just like a satisfying sound as a human being. Like I like that little click so much, but having it in the movie, especially like emphasizing that scene, was a really cool choice, especially with the sound design. Totally agree. Great point.
Which is, again, why this needs to be watched in theaters. I feel passionately.
Yes, totally.
Full immersive experience.
Mm-hmm. One thing I wanted to say, Pierce Brosnan wasn't in this a ton, but I feel like all of his moments were very notable.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed him.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed him. I really noticed like his mannerisms, and this is kind of the first time I've seen him in something as he's like getting older. I feel like I've missed the last couple Brosnan movies, but in my mind, and this is just so random, but you know how they're like redoing Harry Potter as a series and we're like all kind of guessing who the cast is and like Cillian Murphy might be Voldemort or, things like that. I was like, he would be a great Dumbledore. Like immediately my mind was like, even though he has these tense moments and like in the book, Dumbledore is not like that. He's not like Michael Gambon? Is that his name?
Gambon.
Yes, Gambon. That he's like, did you put your name in the goblet of fire? But it's like, but even those moments, like, I just was watching Pierce Brosnan and I was like, he would be so good. He would be so good. He would be amazing as Dumbledore. And I don't know what it was in this movie that I just kept thinking that. I was like, wow, Pierce Brosnan, I'm casting you.
It's the like all-knowing side eye, I think.
Yes. Yeah. The grace under pressure.
Yeah.
You know what was fun about him actually standing in front of like the satellite feed room? Okay. His first Bond movie was GoldenEye, where they're shooting off missiles and they have to go on these parabolic flights. And so there's scene at the end of that movie where he as Bond are watching things going in satellites and all of that type of stuff. And I was like, oh, it's like a little homage from when his like career went into like super stratus, where he played like the quintessential spy, and now he's kind of like the spy villain. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
In a spy movie that's like not the typical spy movie too, which is really fun.
Exactly.
All of his Bond movies are like big and flashy and we're going to space and the world's gonna end, and it's all like action, all process, all like big flashy stuff. So that was great too. It's like we're gonna do this small, understated, subtle, incredibly intellectual.
Right, because he he helped revitalize Bond, because there had been such a huge stretch between Bonds. The last one before him was Timothy Dalton, and it was real bad. There was a long time before Brosnan came along, and then GoldenEye was just like perfect formula, restarted everything. And I love Daniel Craig, by the way. Love Daniel Craig, who also starred in Knives Out and all that type of stuff, which I've heard compared to this film as well, Black Bag, which I actually kind of wanted to ask you guys about this. Does this feel like Knives Out or Agatha Christie to you, or does it feel like its own thing?
I think there are like parallels in like their own way, for sure. I think too, there's a big parallel with like the comfortability of the house, but the most violent things happen in the house, but we get to leave the house to solve the mystery in the house. Kind of a thing, right? Like, so that's fun. That's always like a nice little tidbit. Yeah, I don't know. Great question.
I was thinking about this while watching the movie because I was just loving it. So I'm like, I just want more of this. And I could see I wanted a whole series of just like each episode is what's this week's whodunit? You know what I mean? Like, who's coming for us now? And just to see George and Catherine investigate, take them down, new colorful personalities, and then we wrap up and then we do it all over again. There's this like serialized aspect that I think could be really cool. Obviously, like this exists and that probably might get diluted, but I just could see that being like a serialized set of George and Catherine take on the next foe, and we don't know who it is yet, and we have to figure it out. It'd just be fun, and then just throwing all the clever, witty dialogue in there, and I'm having a great time, you know. So that formula,
Totally.
yeah, good work.
Yeah, way fun. You know, I do love, and I think one thing to comment, like we've kind of talked about it too, is like that this movie isn't very action based. I mean, that explosion is kind of like the biggest piece or like trope of an action movie. And then we have, of course, like the dinner scene with the knife and then the final dinner scene with the gun. But it's a spy movie that isn't really fully an action movie. And that is so fun. And I think that's also kind of like we're talking about Knives Out. I mean, if you look at the plot and like the plot line of Knives Out, you could switch it to just be like a detective movie. And I mean, the sheriff's department is set on fire and Fran is murdered and no, I was going to say the wrong name. I almost said Hayward Wyndham, which is Legally Blonde, not Knives Out. But the older man, I forgot his name, but like his death is gruesome and like the way that they could have Christopher Plummer. But like the way that they played his death out, like everything was shifted. And that's kind of how this movie feels too, is that it's like it could have been this, like following all these tropes, but it wasn't, because we wanted to emphasize this in the story. Like it's not just your stereotypical spy movie. That's just like a contextual factor to this mystery, which is so fun.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I loved this movie so much is because it combines two things that I love, which is cozy mysteries and spy movies, like all in one. I have been just like knee deep in cozy mysteries lately. That's all that I want to watch. So watching this, that's what I kept thinking about, was all of these other shows and movies that I've been watching lately that follow this very formulaic, like impossible crime happens, eccentric detective needs to come in and solve it, and he gathers everyone together, very Agatha Christie-esque, gathers all the suspects together to reveal who did it. So it has all of those elements that I love, that it works in this context. You know, we can see it's still a thrilling spy movie, but it's also different than what we've seen before. And I think that this is a really cool way to like stretch the genre, and you're in the boundaries of a normal spy movie, but you're going about it very differently. So it feels fresh and new, but it also feels familiar enough that it's a really fun time.
I love that.
I was going to say, Klarissa, does that remind you of any other movie that you've seen recently? Detective-y?
Thin Man?
Yes.
Yes. I was like, we watched Thin Man for 1934. So good. But it has that like same romantic feel
husband
in it.
and wife team. She's not a detective, but
she's a part of that
sort
thing.
of exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
She like inserts herself and she's like, come on, let's go. Let's figure this out. Yeah. For sure.
But there is
so
also
fun.
dinner scene reveal, that whole thing.
Yes. So fun. But I love the way you categorized this of like cozy mystery. Chef's kiss. What a perfect genre. Like, yeah.
I just love seeing a movie like this out in theaters. I think that's so special. That like we're just so inundated with big action blockbusters, which is kind of I didn't know. I also went into this film like you, Klarissa, more with a white canvas, so I didn't know what to expect. And I was expecting, you know, like a big like globe-trotting spy thriller. And I just love how small this film is in scope, and it doesn't have the big flashy sequences, and it's far more cerebral than I expected it to be. And so I just love that this exists in the theaters. I think that's really exciting that a movie like this is existing, and I hope that like it helps shape the palates of the movie-going audiences and masses to desire for more of this, so the studios will make more of this and shift the trend that we've been on the past few years.
Yeah, I agree. I think, too, I was really surprised and a little bit worried. I was messaging Sarah Shea and it was like, honestly, I thought I might have to go down to where Sarah lives because we're only like 2.5 hours away from each other. But I live in a really small rural town and our movie theater is only like 8 screens. And so they only play blockbusters. And then like occasionally on weeknights, they replay movies. Like we've got the Gerard Butler Phantom of the Opera playing right now. We went to Shrek last week. But they don't usually put movies like this in our theater for some reason. Like they just don't. And so I was so happy they did. And I was really surprised. But I was like, this is one you should see.
Yeah.
And we actually had nearly a full theater for it, which really surprised me. But I was so grateful. I was like, people need to be seeing things like this. So I'm hoping it's kind of realigning. But yeah, this is a movie that I'm really happy it didn't just skip to streaming because you do miss movies like that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. I grew up in a really small town in Northern California, and we had a movie theater that had one screen. So you got to see one movie at a time. That's it, one. And I was, I think, in middle school before I ever went to a theater that had multiple screens. So it's funny when you say your theater only has 8 screens, that I'm immediately transported back to childhood. We were like, no, one. You got to see one movie. You went in and you said, I would like a ticket, please. You didn't even need to say which movie because there was only one movie being played at a time.
Oh my God.
But it's interesting to think too, as like, I'm hoping there are more movies like this that I can go see and not just wait for it to come out on streaming, because I actually really love going to the movies, but I'm also not really into the big obvious action movies. So I'm not going to go see Marvel movies or Sonic or all of those types of things. Not my thing. I want a reason to go to the movies, but I would also like other people to be in the theater with me. I feel like I've been going to the movies by myself or no one else in the theater other than me and whoever I'm with for years now, 5 years or so since COVID. And that's so lonely. There's something to be said about having that collective experience in a theater. So, Klarissa, when you're saying that like you said out loud, you gasped and felt guilty, I'm like, but no, that's the reaction that you want to have in a theater. You want to feel people
like
having correct, because those are the types of experiences that I remember from before movies coming out that were big blockbusters or twists, or like seeing The Sixth Sense in the theater for the first time, and we didn't have social media back then. And so you had these big reveals and people were gasping. The Blair Witch Project or The Usual Suspects or Seven or whatever it is. And so you want those sorts of reactions, but they don't have to be these giant budget, over the top, super, I'm calling them traditional, but I don't even feel like they're traditional in that sense anymore, because they're just, to me, they feel so big and so giant and so overblown and so noisy that I can't grasp on to anything. And so for me, yes, this was super fun to see in the theater, and I liked it even more the second time, and I'm definitely gonna watch it again and again and again because it's that fun. So we need more of this type of stuff, but we also need more people just to be willing to go to the theater to see stuff that they may or may not know if they're going to love it before they go. Right? And I get that it's expensive for sure, but also go have an experience, and maybe you'll end up loving something that's not a guarantee, right? Or it's okay if you don't love it to the ends of the earth, but you enjoyed the experience. We should be able to go to the movies and have a fun experience, even if we're not like leaping out of our seats in excitement, right?
Well, and seeing it too and giving the movie a chance in a way that the director intended, like I don't know. This is a movie, and especially like we've talked so much about sound and sound design, that it's like you should watch this in theaters because there is so much intentionality to every sound in this movie. And our TVs, unless you have like crazy good surround sound, you're gonna miss some of those details, whether you like it or not. And it's like, honestly, that's why it's so fun. I mean, I saw La La Land 9 times in the theaters because I just was so obsessed. I also was a musical theater kid in high school crying over that of like, I want to be an actress too. But I still just loved how much it was made for the big screen and for that volume. And I was like, unless this comes out as like a 50th anniversary when I'm however old, I probably won't ever see this on the big screen again. So I need to take in this opportunity with these speakers that I clearly cannot afford or, casually put in a home right now. That's my opportunity. I need to take it. Yeah.
I love that you went to see it 5 times. That's so great. You just show up again. They're like,
9.
oh, you
9.
again.
Not even
Oh,
5.
yeah. 9.
9. It was too many. Well, no, I'm not going to say too many. I love it.
It was your Titanic. Right?
Yes.
Because there were girls when Titanic came out who just kept going to see it over and over again. Now, I went to see Titanic, I think 3 times, but the after the first time, the other 2 times were with my brother so that we could make fun of the girls who were crying over Leo DiCaprio, and we were throwing popcorn at them because that's what you should do when people are crying over Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes. I'm going to be watching Titanic and just have Sarah come knock on the door and like
pelt you.
Yeah.
You can watch it. Just don't cry. Don't cry.
That's impossible.
Don't cry over him. No, you cry over the character, but not because, oh, you're so beautiful. No.
Oh, yeah, no, okay. So funny. But yes, listeners, go watch this movie in theaters. Take that opportunity. And also, I think, support an amazing business.
Yeah.
Support it. I mean, like, prices have gone up, but also, like, what prices have not gone up? That's one thing about, like, the theater industry is that it's, like, literally, what hasn't? The price of asparagus is outrageous. So I don't even want to hear it about a movie ticket, okay? Like, just live with it. This is our economy.
But it's also a different experience. You are consuming the product differently.
Yeah, it's not just like, well, I could just watch it at home. It's like, no. Things also sometimes were made for the theaters, and the way that they design the film were made so intentionally for you to have that experience. Why throw that opportunity away? Why?
The great comparison I always give for people is seeing your favorite artist live at a concert, right? Like the set design, the hearing the music live. Like everyone knows that like live music versus like digital or even vinyl, the difference between digital and vinyl is so different. So that's my thesis I often give for people. I'm like, imagine seeing only your favorite artist that you've seen in concert, only digital your entire life. Just imagine.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because last year around this time, I got to see The Wizard of Oz on the big screen. And let me tell you, that was a transformative experience for me. And yes, we know that this is an iconic movie and it's had dozens and dozens and dozens of years to be built up. But there's a huge difference between watching it even on your best home screen and like actually seeing it as it was intended in a theater with all of the full sound, with the giant screen. Crisp, clear, gorgeous, beautiful, like, wow. So you got to kind of approach all movies like they all could be The Wizard of Oz. Mm-hmm. So you should just go see everything in the theater.
Yeah.
I love our echo chamber. I love that we are united in our mission.
Yes. Yes.
To save movie theaters and the movie industry. I love it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other last big things about Black Bag before we wrap? Time has flown. Do we hit them all? Other than our manifesto of like, we need to watch this in that theater.
You know what? I think just saying to like the acting is really good. And there was this, I was kind of thinking about this and I was like, was this a difficult sort of setup for these actors who are so highly skilled? And I'm kind of watching Michael Fassbender and I'm like, is he just playing Steve Jobs again? Or is he just, another Prometheus robot? I'm not really sure. And then I was like, my favorite role that I actually know him in is actually playing Macbeth in a cinematic version of Macbeth from like 2015, where he is absolutely, completely unhinged. I think I've used that word already. And I'm like, yeah, he's a pretty skilled actor. And I liked seeing this more reserved, and again, he's reserved in other movies, but comparing him to my favorite role that he's in, where he is so over the top, just like flipping out and killing people, and this being much more quiet. And I really enjoyed that, along with Cate Blanchett and all of these other so supremely talented. And I think it's just that they're more subtle in the way that they are approaching these roles than us watching it being like, yes, acting, right? Like I know acting when I see it, but I think it's also harder to recognize when people are acting when they're being much more subdued. So I wanted to make sure it said that at least.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Well, I think too, we're so used to people like casts getting leaked for really big, really, really big name directors. Like Steven Soderbergh is totally a big name director, I would say. But like we've got The Odyssey with Christopher Nolan, and everyone is like freaking out about that cast. But I'm like, did anybody even see this cast? Has anyone been paying attention? Yeah. This is an incredible cast. Like, this cast blew my mind. And I feel like sometimes there are movies where they come out and all of a sudden I'll just be like, oh my gosh. Like, oh, and they're in this too, and they're in this too. And this is one of those casts. And they all worked together and their performances so seamlessly and beautifully. Like, everyone complimented each other while also being so individualistic. It was so cool. Just so satisfying.
I always know it's a great performance when I'm trying to think about other people that could play those roles, and I'm like, it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt about Cate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender's performance. I'm just like, it needs to be them in the specific ways that they can show up, in the way that, Catherine floats into a room and it's necessary. And
the talk.
You can't swap them. And so that's not like, it's got to be them. It's got to be them.
Yeah, totally. And their chemistry is unmatched. It's so good. It is so good. Yeah.
Well, and I think even the chemistry just among the ensemble, the characters who don't like each other, that chemistry is there enough for you to be like, ooh, I feel like they really actually hate each other. Like that's good chemistry as well. Not just the I want to smooch you chemistry, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, it's really fun to see when you can tell that the actors are having a really deliciously fun time. And I think you feel that.
Yes.
Maybe that's why the comparison to Knives Out, because in Knives Out, too, every cast member is having the time of their life. And I felt that in this movie. They're just having a great time. So, lovable.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is our review discussion of Black Bag. I think we were all fans of this movie. So as you've heard from our last nearly hour and a half conversation, we love this movie. We can't rave about it enough. Go watch it in theaters. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Movies and Us. And a big thank you to you both for joining and sharing all of your thoughts, opinions, things you loved, things that you noticed in this film. So fun to just yap about this movie for an hour and a half together.
Thank you so much for having us, and seriously for choosing this movie. I'm so happy we all loved it so much. What a fun experience talking about it, and thanks for having us on.
Particular thank you for me, because I feel like I haven't reviewed a movie beyond 1975 and the only thing that I'm reviewing that are in the 70s is for a greatest movie of all time podcast. Everything else has been back in the 30s. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to talk about a new release. This is amazing. I'm in the modern era. Oh my gosh. It's like I've time traveled. So special thank you for me.
Oh, I love it so much. That's so great. And this was a fun one, too. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just watch a slew of movies. We just came out of Oscar season 2, so we just watched a lot of serious period pieces and dramas. And it's just fun to have fun at the movies. So it's definitely check that box for a lot.
Yeah, I think that word you used, delicious, is just a perfect word to encapsulate this movie. So,
yes.
Delicious. Absolutely delicious.
100%.
Well, where can people find more of you, connect with you more on the interwebs, and just see more of the content that you create, your ideas, thoughts about movies in general? Where can we find more of you?
Okay, so I'm Sarah Shea. I'm the host and co-creator of Shea Cinema, the Best Picture project. You can find us on all streaming platforms, over on Instagram at Shea Cinema. I'm finally back in the studio editing. We just had a new episode last week for the winner of the 6th Academy Awards Cavalcade. I'll have a new episode out later this week. We're going to keep it rolling, finish out our 6th season. I've been on several episodes of Greatest Movie of All Time podcast this season for them. I'm recording with them in a couple of days on Wednesday, and then this Friday, so by the time this episode comes out, I don't know if that will have passed yet, Klarissa and I are going to be on Instagram live with our good friend Andrew over at the Revisionist Almanac, because we just did the 15th episode with him for the year 1934. So I've been all over Instagram with me in the crazy hat talking about old movies.
Love it. Love it. What about you, Klarissa?
Yeah. Well, Sarah kind of captioned it so perfectly. We are both in that episode, and it's been such a blast to watch all of those. So please head over to Revisionist's Almanac. Also for every episode, such a fun show. But I'm mostly on Instagram. That's where you can kind of follow my journey. I'm hoping to maybe potentially start my own show in the fall in conjunction with the film class I have in school. So keep an eye out on my page for that. And I'm currently trying to get Kevin Bacon's attention because I sent him a letter. So if anyone wants to hop over and tag Kevin Bacon on my page, please feel free. That's what I'm up to.
I love it. That's so great. We will include all of those links, handles, info, all that goodness, all the deets in our show notes. So make sure to go check them out. They're just so amazing. You need them on your feed is all we could say. Yeah, just big personalities and so many interesting opinions, and we love to see it. So we'll include all that in the show notes. All right, well, our name, Movies and Us, sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories. So everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating review letting us know your thoughts about Black Bag. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Movies and Us Pod, or email us at moviesanduspod@gmail.com. We will be back next week to discuss the film Death of a Unicorn. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk again with y'all very soon.